State Representative Jeanine, and I'm speaking for Representative Al Baldessaro today because he had surgery, and I don't want him to talk.
Well, I can still talk there. It's great to have my buddy back here, back doing the show again. I just had an operation with 2 polyps on both sides. But you were out running today, right?
Yes.
The voice is terrible.
Yeah, I know. Yes. So you had surgery.
Yeah,
I have
right.
a slight injury, but so I haven't been able to run as much.
Yeah.
But I did make it 5 miles today. So.
You know, you weren't at the last show, but I brought up about we have this Senator Sharon Carson,
Yes.
on how she's one of the hardest working senators in the state.
Al, stop talking. You just said look pretty. And
Right.
I'll introduce Sharon
Okay,
Carson.
introduce our guest.
Good friend, Senator Sharon Carson. Welcome, Sharon.
Hi, Jeanine. It's good to see you.
And good to see you too. You're from Londonderry.
Yes. I've lived here in Londonderry for over 30 years.
And I've known you longer than I've been a state rep. So I've been a state rep for 10 years. And I remember when you were running for state senate, you came to I called it a snow breaking, the ground breaking for the Gold Star Mothers Memorial.
Yes.
And you won your race, and you've been a senator ever since.
Yes, since
And a darn good one.
Well, thank you very much. Since 2008, and I feel that I'm so lucky to be able to represent this community. It truly is an honor to represent people here. We have a very unique and a very robust community, and it's not just Londonderry, it's the district itself, which is Auburn and Hudson as well. So I feel very blessed to be able to represent the people that live here.
Well, I have a notepad, and I'm going to pass it to my buddy here, Al. So when you have something to say, you write it down, and I'll say it for you, okay?
But wait, you could start it off with about some of the great things she's done on the children.
This is like watching an old married couple
I've
argue.
known Al for I don't even know how long I've known you. Long
Well,
time.
longer than we were rep. Yeah.
Longer than I've been a rep. I've known him longer than I've known you. So.
Okay.
Actually, Frank Amaro.
Yes.
We met.
Oh, did you?
Frankie Mero.
Okay, I remember Frank.
Rest
And
in
Al and I
peace.
work together. We share an office. So
Yes,
this
I
year
know.
we're the whips, but they don't call us whips anymore. It's floor leader, deputy Republican floor leader. So.
Okay.
But we're basically the whips. And Al said you were here to the show today. Blah, 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 I'm just talking away. Is about the children, the work that you've done on the children. I think one of the bills I was actually a co-sponsor on with Mary Ellen McKay to give the grandparents.
Yeah,
Right.
I was co-sponsored on that too. Yeah.
You were co-sponsored on that too.
Yeah,
Precedents.
we were one of the first states, and thank goodness for Mary Ellen McKay, who filed the legislation, and I believe I co-sponsored, I think Al co-sponsored, I think Representative Kim Rice from Hudson also co-sponsored. They gave grandparents the right to be first at the head of the line when it came to placement of children, their grandchildren. As you know, before we started getting into the COVID issue, we had, and we still do have, problems with opioids.
Oh, absolutely.
And the opioid crisis, and the numbers of parents who have had the rights of their children terminated by the courts was at one point over 63% in a given year. Federal law says that they can only be in foster care for 12 months, and then the parental rights are terminated. So what you want to try to do is to keep the family together as much as possible, so you would want to go to family members to give these kids to. And they put the grandparents right there, right at the front of the line, so they would be considered by the court. And that really was a very, very important piece of legislation. And many grandparents here in the state of New Hampshire now have their grandchildren and are raising their grandchildren.
I know, and Mary Ellen she's one of my favorite people. She was a state representative.
Yes,
she lives
was.
in Nashua, and she's running for state senate.
Yes, she is.
So,
she is.
And I know the current senator for that district has been in for a long time, but prior to that, she was also a state rep. So she's got a shot at it, and I hope she wins.
Well,
Give you some reinforcements in the
I
Senate.
do too. Mary Ellen is just a champion for children in this state, and she has been for years. She is now the executive director of the New Hampshire Foster and Adoptive Parents Association, and the work that she does for these kids every day is amazing. Helping parents, foster parents and adoptive parents with resources so they can be successful. We do get, I say we because I'm also on the board of New Hampshire FAPA. I am the vice chair of New Hampshire FAPA, and we work very, very closely. I'm on the grants committee.
That's what I was just going to ask. I'm looking at this writing. I'm like, gee, can I read this? I think I can. And grant, that's the word right there. And how much and what was it for?
Well, we've gotten, there are two really important grants that we've gotten. The first is $150,000 from Wendy's.
Wendy's, the restaurant?
Yeah, from Wendy's.
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
Wow, that's awesome.
And they're big supporters of our organization. And in fact, I think there's a commercial out there with Wendy's in New Hampshire FAPA. And we just recently got almost $500,000 grant to work with foster kids and adoptive parents and foster parents. So right now we're going through all the legal process because you have to have insurance, you've got to have the forms all done correctly and approved by the Attorney General's office. So that's what we're going through today. And so soon that money is going to be available and people will be applying for a grant.
I have a lot of respect for foster parents, and it's something I don't think I could ever do because I know that I would get so attached to the kids I wouldn't want to give them back.
That to me that would be a problem for me too, because you welcome these children who are in distress into your home and they become a part of your family even for a very short period of time, and you want to see them successful, you want to see them succeed, and it's hard. I think it's very hard to see them go, and I couldn't do that.
Well, you know,
So
something to throw in there. Sharon Carson, myself, along with Representative Morrison, we pushed the grandparents' rights. And this was a few years ago. We pushed this, remember?
Yes.
But behind the scenes, they were going to kill it. Behind the scenes.
Notepad.
No, I know, but behind the scenes, Sharon
Yeah.
Carson worked her butt off to make sure it got passed for the grandparents' rights.
Yeah, it's just so important that we try to do our very best to keep the kids into a family, and you don't want to disrupt that. Just this year, in one of the omnibus bills that was passed by the Senate, by the legislature, I should say, there is, and it was Representative Sean Morrison's bill that that said to the courts, look, you have to do what's best for the children. What's in the best interest of the child comes first. And I'm hoping that we're going to be able to see some real change with that. That they should consider, where is the best placement for a child? Where should they go? Who's going to take care of them?
Because a lot of times it is the grandparents, so now it's
Right.
law that they get pushed to the top of the list.
Correct.
So.
Yeah, so we've done a lot of work. I know I've done a lot of work with DCYF. A bill that I sponsored and we got passed a few years ago created the Office of the Child Advocate, which is an independent agency within the state government that really parents can call if they're having difficulty with their children, especially if there has been some sort of DCYF contact with them. And I filed another bill this year that really clarified the rights and responsibilities and the duties of the child advocate and expanded some of the things she's able to do. Now, the child advocate is able to address any situation with any child in the state of New Hampshire.
What's an example of another situation?
Where there hasn't been any kind of DCYF involvement, but there might be some sort of court involvement where there's been violations of orders. And a lot of people just don't have the resources to hire lawyers. So they can go to the child advocate. The child advocate can take a look and say, is the court enforcing this order? And it will help parents, I think, in the long run.
So what can you tell me about the approval from DHHS to extend foster care to age 21?
We did that because of a number of issues that we were hearing about. A few years ago, a group of us went to New Jersey and we looked at their child care system.
Mary Ellen went with you?
Yes, Mary Ellen was there.
I remember hearing about the trip.
And so it was really interesting because New Jersey at one point, they were rated one of the worst foster care systems in the country.
Wow.
And they
that.
put resources together, and they changed how they did it. And now they're one of the top 3. So we wanted to go, and we wanted to see, what are you doing that's different? And we brought back some ideas. And so some of the legislation that's been passed is based on our experience of going to New Jersey and seeing how it actually works. And Representative McKay, Representative Ober, and I, and Representative Rice, we were all on this committee to look at foster care. And one of the things we learned is once these kids turn 18, it's over. And where are they going to go? What are they going to do? That support system that they had is now gone. Because the foster parent has no obligation to care for them beyond the age of 18. So we felt, let's extend it to age 21, make sure they get the resources they need. They can stay, they can go off to college, they can stay in contact with the foster parent. Many of these kids leave foster care and they don't know how to drive a car. They don't know about a checking account and jobs and how to write a resume, all those important things. So we looked at this period of time is a time to reach out to these kids and to show them how to do these things so they can be successful when they leave.
In New Jersey, did they extend the age to 21?
I believe in New Jersey, I think it might even be beyond 21, because we had a great conversation with a young woman who was in foster care with family, and she went to college and she really needed that support. So it's been a few years, and I can't definitely say yes, 21, but they did extend their foster care as well.
Well, you know, David Tilley got money for HUD to help these people get into apartments also. Proven by President Trump. May 18th, President Trump signed a bill.
This new federal law will change foster care as we know it.
Right.
So just being devil's advocate, there, you know, at what point do you say that old enough is old enough? You know, like 18, they can go in the military.
I know.
They can learn to balance. I just finished reading a book about a Marine who he learned how to balance a checkbook from
You know, she was in the Army.
Right.
Oh, yes, that's right.
Right.
Yeah.
You're right. It's not for everyone. Kids at that point have choices, and they now have that choice. If they want to remain in that program, they can. Many of them don't. Many of them just want to leave.
And are there enough foster families to take care of the old? I mean, they're
There's
basically
never
they're
enough.
adults.
There's
when
never
they're
enough.
18.
By this legislation, we strengthened it because a lot were walking away. They had problems with the rights for the foster parents that we put in place. Now they're coming back to get involved because there was really no set plan in New Hampshire.
Right.
And we put it in place.
And one of the things we learned is that in many ways there's a pipeline for these kids that unfortunately ends up with them being incarcerated or having some other sort of problem. So you want to stop
that. Makes it even
that.
worse.
You want to stop that before that happens. So they know that it's there. Some of them will take advantage of it, some of them won't. But the program is there. And I think that that's what's important. And they know that.
What are some other things you learned from New Jersey that pushed them into the top 3 spot?
They do a lot of things very differently. They are extremely, extremely well funded.
Where do they get their funding?
From the state. From the state of New Jersey.
Taxes are high in New Jersey.
Oh, they're very high
I know.
taxes.
Well, they've got, you know, sales tax, income tax,
Right.
they tax
we
you,
can't have
everything.
that here. Yeah.
And we don't have that here. So I think we're doing a very good job with what we've done. Is there more work to do? I think both of you know there's always more work to do.
Absolutely.
And so we keep up with it. We look at what the trends are. I chair the Oversight Commission on Children's Services. Because of COVID, we haven't met, and we're trying to meet next month.
Have you met via Zoom?
We tried to do that, but the Senate leadership said wait and see if maybe in September they're going to open up the State House so we can have meetings. The people that are on this commission are people from all over, all different types of nonprofits that deal with children's services. So, and then we deal with DCYF, we get updates, especially about the new program that was signed by President Trump called Families First, that is really going to change how we deliver children's services to our most vulnerable kids here in New
Do
Hampshire.
you get input from kids who have been through the foster care system?
Yes. Yeah, we do.
What are their
we were-
grievances?
Pardon?
What are their grievances? What have they told you?
Many of them, I mean, I think each situation is unique for every child. But the issue about them reaching 18 and not having any additional services was a big one. And they...
But then, well, I'm not saying, I'm just being devil's advocate here. You could change the age of 21, but they could say the same thing.
Right, but you have to start someplace.
But they're educating
You
them.
have to
You're
start
better-
someplace.
We're better educating them to be able to go on their own and help them with apartments and other stuff.
Right.
Through HUD funding. You know, and so it's making this big deal. A few years ago, kids went from foster care, different homes.
Right.
Grandparents wanted them, and they got
And
no
they couldn't
respect.
get
They
them.
couldn't get them.
Yep.
Right.
So
And
that's
they
when we stepped in
And
to
I've
fix
heard
that.
from grandparents
Yeah.
who desperately wanted their grandkids
right.
and they were denied.
They were
Yeah.
denied.
Yeah.
So I think that we've made some very, very positive changes. Is there more work to do? Of course there is.
always.
So we continue to work on that. In the budget, I co-sponsored some bills that actually got into the budget, dealing with DCYF, putting in more positions. Our biggest problem pre-COVID was finding workers. I think we all know that our unemployment rate was very, very, very low. And the state was competing with every other business in New Hampshire for workers. And so there were a lot of positions we just couldn't fill. There was no one to do the job. And then, of course, COVID hit. And so we're keeping a close eye on everything and watching what the department is doing and getting ready for hopefully the next legislative session where we might have to do some things. But hopefully it's going to be okay.
Have you gotten feedback from the public about these bills?
Oh, yes, yes. So many parents, grandparents are so pleased with the work that we've done. And then they'll say, well, you ought to think about this, what about this? Or they come up with ideas.
Well, yeah.
And that's where being a representative of the people is you listen to what they have to say. And so you carry those conversations over with people that are in the field and ask them questions about it. So there's a constant, in my opinion anyway, a constant dialogue between all the entities that are involved to improve the system. It's not going to happen overnight. In New Jersey, I think it took at least 10 years. But we are on a good path now. And we have elevated it to the point where we are really talking about this. One of the bills I'd like to bring in is a bill that I brought in a couple of years ago that separated child care, DCYF, juvenile justice out of DCYF and have it be its own agency. I really think that needs to happen. I think both of you know DHHS is this
Just
huge,
too big.
huge,
Department of Health and Human Services,
Yeah.
just in case, we like to talk in letters.
is a
but-
huge, it's the largest state agency.
Yeah.
And I think that these children need to have a voice through a state agency, and I think having it be a standalone agency with its own commissioner is going to be important.
So DHHS is the old word for it, welfare? Or
No,
is
Department
that-
of Health and Human Services it's everything.
Right.
It's a big umbrella.
It's a huge
It's-
umbrella.
I bring it up.
Food stamps, TANF, everything.
Right.
Right.
I bring it up because, about 10 years or so ago, I met a woman who used to work for Health and Human Services, and she quit her job so she could write a book about how there are people in the system that milk the system, who are getting money when they don't need it. And she gave examples. Chapter 1, there was a woman who lived with her boyfriend. Her boyfriend was the father of her children. He was supporting them. But because they weren't married, she knew how to get welfare. They don't call it welfare anymore. She knew how to get all this extra money. And that's money that could have been going towards kids
Right.
who desperately need it, like the ones we were talking about in the foster care. And another chapter was a big muscle guy who, I can't work because my back hurts. He wanted more time to go to the gym, so he's getting this money and going to the gym.
Right.
And she saw a lot of this, and she wrote a book about it. I can't remember the name of the book. I remember what the cover looks like.
I think there's two issues. One is personal responsibility. And the other is, we know people are going to try to game the system. I mean, look at, I think it was in the news last week about a gentleman from Florida who had applied for, who owned a business, and he applied for all these loans for COVID, and he used them. He bought himself a Lamborghini.
Yeah.
There was expensive shopping trips to New York.
get-
I mean,
yeah,
the good thing is, Jeanine, he got caught.
Right.
Good.
He got caught.
Little by little, they get them.
Yeah, and
And
you
I mean,
know,
they should be
do
forced to look
get
at
them.
pictures of these little kids that need help.
I know, but you know, the government can only do so much. The government can only do so much. The government,
And in New
government
Hampshire,
can't
you know,
be
we try to
everything.
be fiscally responsible, and we have
Right.
this much money, and this is how we need to spend it. So we have to look at everything line by line in every
Correct.
department to see where money's going. Because if it's not needed so much here, then we need to move it over there.
Correct. And we do that, but you just have to realize there are going to be people that are just going to try to game the system. And it happens. And they have investigators, so if anybody sees anything that they think is wrong, they need to report it. This is where personal responsibility comes into play.
The-
And it'll get investigated.
Right.
Then I remembered the name of the author. Her name is Deb Shorter. So,
Okay.
and then eventually I'll remember the name of her book. But if you look up Deb Shorter, you might be able to find her book online.
Now, Sharon, did you know we're meeting at the Whittemore? We're not going to State
Yes,
House.
Oh, we're not for veto
Yeah,
day?
for Veto Day, September 15th.
We'll be in your chamber.
You'll be in
again.
our. That,
In
I
the
just-
air-conditioned
yeah.
chamber.
Well, oh yeah. Well, I'm thinking
How
about ice.
interesting
Isn't
is
it going
that?
to be an ice rink? How's that going to
I
work?
know, that's what I thought. I don't know. That was,
Well,
the kids
look,
put out a letter this morning.
oh, see, we haven't been notified of anything yet, but it was a historic event to have the Senate meet in the
Right.
House chambers. I had no idea that they had installed air conditioning.
Oh, yeah.
Because when I was in the House,
Yeah.
there was no
Nothing.
air
Well, it's
conditioning.
new.
Yeah.
And it was a
new.
new system. We were the first ones to use it.
But it still
so-
gets hot in there when 400
Yeah, it still
people.
gets warm in there,
Yeah.
but they built these little desks for us.
Oh, we
So-
don't get any desks.
Yeah.
I have a big
Did you all
notebook I
sit up
keep on my
front?
lap.
No,
No.
no, we were
Oh.
all spaced out, one person per
my
row
seat in
and
the house
staggered.
is 4x4.
Ah, no, we
Four
had
by
these
four.
little desks. They asked us if we were right-handed or left-handed, and so they built, the carpenters at the State House built us these little desks that fit over the adjacent seat, and our microphones are there, and so we have a place to put whatever papers or whatever we have.
That's why we call you the House of Lords.
Yeah.
We're in the House of Commons.
We're not the House of
But
Lords.
I got to be in the House of Lords once when they were voting on a bill. This was my freshman year. We named a bridge in Merrimack
Yes,
after
I remember
Tim
that.
Gibson. So thank you
And
for
I
your
remember
vote.
Senator Ray White was involved with that
Yes.
as well. He was the senator for the district at that time. So.
And the family was there. They got to hear the roll
Yep.
call vote, and every single one of you voted yes. But
Right.
while I was in there, I could hear, laughing and stuff in the house. I'm like, gee, I don't know. I think the house is more fun.
Well, there's more people
Yeah.
there.
Yeah,
I mean, there's 24 of us, and we all have to sit according to our district.
right.
So we don't
yeah.
get to choose
I sit
where
by
we sit.
Al.
Ah,
Yeah,
okay.
we're right up front.
But we hear you guys all
Yeah.
the time. I mean,
That's him.
you can hear the you
Yeah.
can hear the stuff going on through the wall. We tend to be
I
a little more
walk
quiet.
the floor. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I know.
Her and I
We
both-
can't do that.
Yeah.
You folks can turn off your voting mechanism and walk away.
Right.
We can't do that. We have to sit there. If you
Wow.
if you need to leave the chamber, you need to tell the doorkeeper where you are because they will hold the vote until you get back.
Okay, because
Oh, yeah.
this goes right through. Sometimes I have to get up and I'll be right back.
Well, what most
Can't
people
do that
don't
in the
know is right adjacent to the Senate chamber is a bathroom. So
Didn't
they
know
don't
that.
want us.
Oh,
They
they've
don't
got
want
all the
us
bases
leaving.
covered.
Right,
You're
right.
not
So
missing a
it's
vote.
right there, and so you don't have an excuse to take off and say, "Oh, I got to go to the bathroom," and go down the hall. Absolutely not. You have to be here. So we have both a sergeant of arms that guards this door and a doorkeeper on this side who guards the door. And we have, if we leave, we have to tell them
No
where
one
we
gets
are.
in, no
you
one
ever,
gets out.
you ever been in the back room?
No.
Their room?
Didn't I
No,
take
no,
you?
Yeah,
to
she
the
brought
back?
me.
peeked in once and I saw you all have mugs.
They got food, everything back
Yeah,
there.
I know. They
Yeah,
have food,
but we pay for our own food.
Yeah.
Well, we used to. When the Republicans were there, we paid for our own food. We collected money from all, well, I should say, I collected money from all the members. And we would, each one would do something different and bring food in for us. Because we can't leave. We can go for lunch, but you know, when the Senate president says we're starting at 1 o'clock, you can't be straggling in, because if you are, you're going to get talked to. So if it starts at 1, you better be at your seat at 1 o'clock, because they're starting at 1 o'clock.
I miss Kevin Avard being in the Senate.
Oh, the singing
I
senator.
hope he gets back in. The singing
Well,
senator,
he's working,
he was
he's
amazing.
working hard.
Right.
Kevin
Yeah.
is working hard. I think as all the Republican candidates are.
And
We're
Gary
all-
Daniels.
Yep, we're all
Gary
out there
Daniels was
working
my
hard.
senator.
Yep,
So,
we're all out working hard.
hope
So
he gets back in.
Yeah,
Oh, me
but
too.
that's the political side of it. But it's difficult today because of COVID. The traditional ways of doing voter outreach, we really can't do. Many people
well,
are
actually,
uncomfortable.
I have been knocking on doors, and I
Yeah.
just grab a mask, and I'll put it up, because you have to make people comfortable.
Right.
And some people answer the door wearing a mask. And then I
Right.
back up so that they can
Yeah.
back up enough they can see my face, and then I can breathe, because I can't breathe in the mask. I have a very hard time.
Well, a lot of people have difficulty with breathing in the mask. I know, as someone who wears glasses, I put on a mask
hear
and
that
all
a
the
lot.
hot air
Fog,
just
yeah.
goes right
But
up
even at the
underneath your
eye doctor,
glasses.
my eye pressure was very high. I said, oh, I can't breathe. So they put me in another room. They let me take my mask down, and they put drops in my eyes and did another test, and then my eyes pressure was normal. So
Yeah.
it's.
Well,
And then you have the mental thing, like you have those germs right against your face, and you're breathing them in. It's like, so I have several masks. I keep switching them out.
You also
Wash
have
'em.
people that have breathing difficulties, kids
Asthma,
that
yeah.
have asthma and things like that. And I think we just need to be aware of that, and I think be understanding that there are people that that do have issues, and we need to be respectful
Now,
of each other.
The reason I put this on in the house,
like
they
you.
say they want a mask. I wear my mask and they start crying, raising hell.
Oh, I know. Yeah. Let's see. I've got a bunch.
they
here.
hate
Yeah,
it.
I've got
Yeah.
some masks here as
There-
well, and I
there's
keep
one.
a stack in my car.
Oh, I like this one.
Um,
This one is.
Well, do you wash
Yeah.
it every time you wear it?
I
Oh,
do.
yeah.
I
Okay,
do.
you should. I
Yeah,
think
Judy
that
washes
needs,
them,
people
yeah.
need to know that you need to
yeah.
wash them. Oh, I love
I
that.
love Lucy.
Now, you
That's
know,
great. I
As
love
Rosie
that.
the Riveter, and the green matches my signs.
Ah, good.
yesterday at the Elliott Hospital, Judy had a cloth on. They made her take it off, and they gave her a
There's
regular,
a hospital one, yeah.
the hospital one,
Yeah.
yeah.
You know, we really need to give kudos to Governor Sununu for getting the PPE for the state.
Oh, big time, yeah.
I mean, we're getting shipments in all the time.
Right, I think the
Dean
Democrats came
in.
down on him and
Yeah.
said that, well, you were supposed to go through us. He goes, look, it was a get it now or you
Right.
don't get it.
That's right.
Right,
was-
the decision needed to be made
Right,
immediately.
and he's the,
Right. And I
top in the
think-
state.
I think the last shipment was for the VA.
VA,
And
right.
Dean came in, and a
But
number
some
of
of
other
that was
business
gonna go to
leaders have
us
been involved in this. So.
Because we gave the VA some stuff there that they, because their shipment didn't come in. The governor did.
So this really has been, you know, again, the governor has done a phenomenal job in managing this.
Our numbers are low compared to
Yeah,
other
we
states.
are.
We're doing
And-
pretty
And
good.
people have learned how to wash their hands, which
I
is,
know.
I mean, think of it, back in the day when they had all those terrible diseases, people knew how to wash their hands.
Right.
More
We
like
didn't.
during the
Yeah.
Black Plague, Black Death,
Yeah.
bubonic plague. If they knew about germs and cleanliness and washing, you know,
Right.
even during the Civil War, this is interesting. The South was running out of thread
Mm-hmm.
for surgeries, so they were using horsetails, and they're so hard they would boil them.
Yeah.
And people got less infections because they didn't realize by boiling them, they were sterilizing them.
Well, most people don't realize that more people died from diseases during the Civil War than actual battle wounds.
Yeah, that's right.
So I think we're supposed to talk
Gangrene.
about COVID-19.
Well,
now,
since
we all
you-
know, this is
the
COVID-19.
reason-
Now,
yeah.
there's also hashtag COVID-25,
Right.
which many have come down with. And that's the result of eating while they are during quarantine and they gained 25 pounds. So,
Yeah,
I came
Well,
down
that
with
is-
hashtag
I
COVID-5.
I lost 3 pounds, so
Chasing
I'm not doing
Yeah.
too bad.
You know, it's
Wanna go over that?
Well, I
Yeah.
just, since you
Well-
were talking COVID, that's why I pulled that out.
yeah. No, I think this is important, and of course, this comes from the CDC. I don't know if you know. I know Al knows. I sit on the governor's reopening task force, so I'm really familiar with all of this. With many of the CDC guidelines. This was really a tremendous effort by the governor and all the people that were involved, because we had to figure out what are we going to do here? How are we going to reopen New Hampshire and keep people safe?
Yeah.
and balance those two interests. And believe me, there were people on this side that were screaming and yelling, we cannot open, we can't do anything. And then people on the other side that were screaming, we need to
everything.
open, we need
Yep.
to open everything. And so we walked a very narrow path in between, and it worked. And in fact, I want to say it was the Wall Street Journal did an article about 2 states that did not experience a surge, because we looked what happened in California, you look at Texas, you look at Florida. New Hampshire was one, Maine was the second. And I look at that and said, we did it right. We did it right.
Right.
We were very careful about it. Some people felt we didn't go far enough. Some people felt
Right.
that we went too far.
I heard from my constituents saying the same thing, and people were very genuinely scared. And being legislators, we have to listen to everybody,
you
and
listen to
it's very
everyone.
hard. It's because you feel for everybody, and you do see both sides.
We got
Right.
some people are scared, don't even want to leave the house.
Right.
And we
And
have
they-
people today; they're still scared.
Then the other
Right,
ones are
people still
blaming
are
us.
very scared.
The ones that aren't scared are blaming us. Why aren't you open? Why aren't you doing this, that?
Right,
know,
and
yeah.
the task force gets that. In fact, we're meeting tomorrow. When we first started, I believe it was 5 days a week we were
Right.
meeting, and it was at least for 2 to 3 hours. And we worked with every single business and industry that you can think of here in New Hampshire, and worked with them to get them to a point where they could be open and people could go in and feel that they were safe and protected. And everyone's following the CDC guidelines, and it's worked. It has worked. We haven't seen the surge. What we do know is where we're most vulnerable is in our long-term care facilities.
Yes.
And one of the conversations I've had with the governor is, we really need to do an after-action report. You know what that is.
Yep.
Where something has happened.
Lessons learned.
And you go back and you take a look at what you did right, what you did wrong,
Right.
what did you learn, and what do you need to do in the future. I hope we never go through something like this again, ever.
I
But
hope
we
so,
need
too.
to be prepared. I think so many people were blindsided in March because we started hearing about something was going on.
Right.
And we didn't have any information. We didn't.
Right.
We didn't know.
There were some gentlemen from the Reagan administration that came to New Hampshire, and I have a YouTube channel now, Chatting with Jeanine. You look it up, and one of the shows that's on there is about the threat of China, and with those gentlemen, they came and talked to me, and at the time, I'm like, oh, they were just trying to scare us, just like with the swine flu. My husband had the swine flu, and he was very, very sick. It was terrible. I said, this is just another one of those things. We're all going to die, and then, but like you said, we took the right steps. But in Hillsborough County, their nursing home, we did have a lot of deaths,
Rockingham.
and
Yeah.
we had to
Nothing.
replace
We did
a
pretty
lot of
good.
workers. A lot of workers
Even our
tested
veterans
positive.
home, zero.
But listen,
Yeah.
out of the workers that tested positive at the nursing home, only one of them went to the hospital.
Yeah.
Only 2 got sick.
We had no cases, and I'm
Yeah.
doing 0 from Rockingham
right.
County.
You had 54 veterans died in Massachusetts
Yeah.
in one home.
Right. And I don't think there were any
too. They
from the
wouldn't let the
soldiers' home
parents-
in
No.
Tilton either.
I haven't heard any.
So I think our folks did a great job.
Yeah.
Does it mean that we don't have to look at that? Absolutely
Oh,
not.
right.
I think we need to look at what we did right, what we did wrong, and if we need to make improvements, we need to do that. I think one of the saddest things that happened during COVID was, during the height, I should say, here in New Hampshire, where their loved ones were in a skilled nursing facility, and they were
couldn't.
sick, and they couldn't go in to see them, and
Yeah.
many of them passed.
I mean, can you imagine?
I
if that
can't
was your
imagine
own,
that.
Your own
I can't
parent?
imagine that. So we've got to figure out a way to deal with that and create a blueprint for the future. I sincerely hope we never go through anything like this ever again, but we need to be prepared. The last time we went through this was 1918.
I don't remember.
And most people,
Yeah.
no,
Yeah.
most,
She
we
she
didn't have a living
She was a
population
state
to
rep.
talk
then.
about it.
She was a state rep then.
Wise guy. But so now we can have a document
Right.
that people can follow, and communities as well. Londonderry did a terrific job of stepping up, putting out information. In fact, I was in the middle of teaching when all of this stuff shut down, so all of our classes had to go to remote online. And in fact, I used some of the things from Londonderry's YouTube channel to show students how government can communicate effectively with the population in their communities. So I think we're going to have to look at things a lot differently, and we're just going to have to be a little more adaptable and realize there's going to be times where things are going to happen. But it was kind of interesting for me because I remember standing outside of Demoulas, and we were all wearing masks, and everyone was queued up and 6 feet apart. And I had visions of those photos we used to see from communist Russia with all these people that were queued up outside waiting to get into a grocery store. And then when you get in,
there's no toilet paper.
The shelves are empty.
It was horrible.
And you just kind of go, what is going on here? I didn't understand the whole hoarding of the toilet paper thing. I didn't get that. But
in Venezuela, the socialist country has been that way for almost 20 years, and they can't get any toilet paper.
I didn't understand.
It was crazy. I couldn't understand pasta, beans, things like that, eggs, meat. But toilet paper?
Yeah.
The sanitizing wipes. You still, in many places, you still can't get them.
I haven't been able to find any.
Right.
Before quarantine, I should have bought another 3 or 4 pack at BJ's when I was there. I didn't because I had plenty. Well, no, I don't have plenty now because my older kids needed some, so they took some home, and now I've got some in the car still. But you had mentioned that 1918, the Spanish flu. I read a book about the Spanish flu, and it was the young people that were dying because they had no immunity. They had they didn't have flus before, so the older people fared better. And the families that avoided getting sick were the ones that stayed quarantined. They had groceries delivered, and just leave them there. Back away.
And you're right about the young people. I've read a number of books about the Spanish flu, and you had someone who might have had a little bit of a sore throat in the morning, but by the evening they're dead. And it was that fast. And they didn't know what to do. They just really, you did palliative care. You tried to keep people comfortable as best you could, but so many young people, you're right, so many young people died during that time period. I don't think people really realize it. But we now know that this is something that primarily affects our older citizens, people that are anyway immunocompromised or have other existing health issues. When this first came out, we didn't know anything. I mean, we had very, very little information. And I can understand why people got scared. We heard about this disease and this coming across the country, and all these people are getting sick and dying, and you just kind of go, oh my God, what do we do? Now that we're getting through it, and hopefully we're going to get through the whole thing. We now know what we need to do.
Right.
And so, if this should ever happen again, I think we have a blueprint, on how to get through it.
What's a shame is the finger pointing, like at the president.
It's how could they blame
He did the right thing under the Constitution, under states' rights. Let the governors run their states. Federal government will assist.
Well, it's the same way in many communities, and we're seeing it with schools reopening. The discussions that are happening, you have people here that feel the government or the state should come in and tell the schools exactly what to do.
What are you doing here in Londonderry?
Londonderry has come up with a plan. I've seen some of it, not all of it. Last night they had another public hearing, but because of the weather, I didn't go.
You don't want to go out in that storm?
No. No, that's okay.
Yeah, I don't blame him.
No, that's okay. I'm watching the trees in front of my house go like this. I'm like, nah, that's okay.
I have a little fake rooster on the deck, and he fell over. He fell over.
Oh,
you saw it? That was and there was a leaf. That was the debris.
But to me, what's important was the plan that was put in place. They had an education task force. They issue guidelines, and they said local control. Local control is important. Every school district in this state is different.
Right. One size does not fit all. And as women, when we go shopping, we know that one size fits all doesn't fit
anybody. Yeah.
Well, the complaints I got was for the special needs kids.
Right. Yes. I got a lot of complaints about those from people here in town.
So I'm hoping they came up with a plan.
Well, I attended the first 2 meetings. And I actually got up and spoke during the first meeting, and I talked about that. And I actually talked about it on the Senate floor as well, that I was getting complaints from parents who had special needs children, and their needs were not being met. And that is a huge problem. That is a federal issue. Yeah. And we take money to educate kids for special education needs. And if we're not fulfilling that obligation, we could get in trouble. We have to be very, very
Right.
careful. So I know that at the last meeting they talked about it, but I have not seen a definite
Yeah.
plan. It has to happen. It just has to happen.
In Merrimack, they're going to have the kids go to school 2 days a week. So one half will go for 2 days, and the other half will go the other 2 days, and then Friday, I don't know.
I don't know how they're going to meet the 180-day
I don't know.
requirement by
yeah,
having
I
a 4-day
don't-
school week.
I don't know. I'm glad my kids aren't in school.
Yeah,
and
me too.
My son,
It-
my
it's
youngest
hard.
is starting his second year of college, and everything's going to be remote. So, but he's a good student. He's a studious student. If anybody
Right.
can do remote learning, it's my son. And
Now-
he's getting a puppy, so.
Are the colleges,
Okay.
are the colleges, have they decided that they bringing students in, or,
I think some of them are.
depends.
I believe UNH
yeah,
is.
because Harvard's
But
going virtual,
they have to wear a
right?
mask everywhere, and a lot of the classes are online, so they're going to be stuck in their dorm. It's going to be different.
It's going to be very, very different. But what I liked about this situation, for me, it highlighted how important school choice has become.
Right.
Because parents want choice.
Yeah.
They do.
They don't want this top heavy down, you have to do this.
Right.
They want choice and they want flexibility. And I see a
Yeah,
lot
every
of
child's
discussions
different.
around that. And I think that is important.
That's again with the one size fits all. It doesn't work.
Right.
It doesn't fit anyone.
And I heard a lot from working parents whose kids go to daycare. Our school buses used to take the kids to daycare. They're no longer going to do that. So these parents are wondering, how are we going to be able to work and still get daycare for our kids?
when everyone was in quarantine, it was so nice having no traffic. We have
Oh,
bunnies,
yeah.
and we have bunnies in my neighborhood for the first time ever because they were finally able to hop over from Hudson because there was no no traffic.
I got lots of bunnies in my yard.
But with
so.
everybody that was working at home, if they can get their work done, then it would be nice if they could keep working from home so there'd be less traffic. Because
Well, the
I
big
know in my
fight-
community, traffic is an absolute nightmare. You cannot get up DWI Way in Merrimack in rush hour. It's just bumper to bumper. It's
Right.
horrible. And they keep
Yeah.
building all these apartments, so there's even more cars on the road.
We got a
Right.
big tax fight coming up now this year with Massachusetts.
Yeah, I saw that this
Because
morning.
with the income
because
tax
like
stuff.
my wife been working from home.
My gosh,
Right.
Yeah.
you know.
Yep, and I think that's going to be a very interesting issue
Yeah.
because New Hampshire is surrounded by states that have income taxes. You've got Vermont, you've got Maine, and you've got Massachusetts, and you've got a lot of New Hampshire people that go over the border and work in these
Yeah.
states,
Yeah.
and they get charged an income tax. And so if they're working at home, they shouldn't be charged.
That's right.
They
Right.
should not be charged. They should be refunded that money. So it's going to be an interesting fight that's going to
Yeah.
be set up between Governor Sununu and Governor Baker.
Right.
And the other
My
governors,
money's on
Janet
Governor
Mills.
Sununu.
So we'll see.
Yeah.
We'll have to watch that and see what happens. But it's all part of this change that we're all going through
Right.
because of this. And it's showing us the things that we've done right and the things we need to change.
So let me ask you a question. When the state started opening up a little bit, what's the first thing that you did? Where'd you go?
I went to a restaurant. I went with some people from Londonderry over to Sabatino's. And Judy called Luciano's before they built the deck. Kept telling them, build the deck, build the deck. They finally did it. We've been
Yeah.
there a few times.
How about you?
I think the first place we went to was Renegade's Pub.
Yeah.
They had it set up outside.
I like the outdoor
And
seating.
I like the outdoor seating too. We went there, we had a great meal, and it was nice to get out. One of the things that I think we need to talk about when we talk about COVID is not only the physical side effects, but also the mental side effects,
Yeah.
because I think we need to realize we all need each other in one way or another. And because we were so isolated,
Right.
many folks felt really disconnected. They're concerned about their children not being with other children and playing and
Right.
things of that nature. But I know one afternoon I finally just said, I got to get out of the house. I got to get out of here. And so I just got in my car. I was by myself. I drove up 93. I went to Plymouth, got off the exit, and I came right back
Yeah.
down.
A lot of
It was
people went and took
just-
drives.
Right.
Yes.
But what surprised me,
But you can't stop anywhere
there was
if you.
no traffic on the road.
know, isn't that
I mean,
nice?
on I-93, during a rush hour, there's maybe 5 cars on the highway. You got to be kidding me.
Home Depot stayed busy. Boy,
Well,
a lot of people did
Home
projects.
Depot,
Yeah.
Well, that's the thing. Everybody had their honey-do list.
I had a
and
lot of projects I got done
I know,
too,
I
and
saw.
I did FaceTime Live. I'd sit on my
Yeah.
steps and just talk to people.
Well-
I was surprised at the interaction.
Yeah, I was knitting. I knit 3 sweaters.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
I did a cross stitch. It's hanging
yeah,
up
I
in my
mean,
room.
we
now.
all did things that just, things that you'd wanted to do. I mean, my closets are all cleaned out, and
I didn't do closets. 'cause they
everything
weren't
is
bad.
all, everything
But,
is all done.
I
and-
live near the Merrimack outlets, so
Oh,
that
that's
first,
dangerous.
Oh, I know. That first day when they opened, though, my son and I went up there, and the only thing we could find open was the Pepper Palace. I'm like,
Yeah.
I don't need anything in the Pepper
Pepper
Palace, but I
Palace.
was so desperate to just shop and help get the economy moving. I found things to buy in the Pepper Palace.
Yeah,
Did Representative Dick Kinch ever call you?
no.
Because I had left him a message
About what?
about, remember our discussion about HB 1234?
No, he never called.
Never did, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, he's been extremely
Yeah.
busy.
Yeah.
Extremely
Yeah,
busy.
this was, I think, this is something that we really need to pass. And I think a lot of people don't understand the process that we went to when these bills were created. This was done by the majority with a little
us.
input from the Republicans, the minority. So these bills, even though I'm the chair of ED&A, I did not put together these bills. This was done by Democratic leadership. And we tried to separate bills out between what was partisan and what was bipartisan. Most of the bills coming from the House were bipartisan. We looked at the vote of the committee as it came out of the committee. We looked at the vote on the floor. And so we grouped bills together in that way. Now, I understand the House had some heartburn about the size of some of these bills. They were large, and look, I get it. But 1, 2, 3, 4 contained a number of bills that were important that needed to be passed. These were all either agency-sponsored bills or something that really needed to get passed. And I don't think that the House understood that. I don't think
No,
the House
we didn't get that
understood the
message.
process. Because you had the House bills that had a hearing, you had the Senate bills that had a hearing, and once these omnibus bills were put together, there was another public hearing. It was all done on Zoom. So, and some of these public hearings, I remember the first one we had was at least 3 to 4 hours. And I know when I conducted the hearing for 1, 2, 3, 4, or any bill that came through ED&A, I read the bill number and the title of the bill into the record, so everyone would know what bill was in that, what bill had been comprised of the omnibus bill.
Yeah, well, didn't they all
Well,
pass? I
No,
No?
the governor vetoed one.
Yeah,
Oh,
he
well, I meant-
vetoed it.
okay.
But like,
No, you guys
when
killed,
I talked to you, I pulled out my
1491.
notes.
Yeah,
And I have them all circled, and I went back and I looked at the time.
I told you to
They
look at them.
didn't have House hearings, they had
Right.
Senate hearings.
Right.
So by the Constitution, that's why I went against it.
Right.
Because by the Constitution and our rules,
Right.
every bill has to have a hearing.
And it just
And
seemed like
they
every
did
one of
have a
those.
hearing,
In the
but they
Senate.
just didn't have,
They did not the House.
right.
But every
they
one of
did
those
have a hearing
omnibus
in the
bills
Senate.
Yeah.
also had something in it that was like a poison pill.
Right.
So, and I had a very hard time, and there was things that I
We-
had
we
to
had
go
reps
for because
complain
of my,
about certain
my
bills
district wanted it, and I
that-
just thought it
But
was
you know what the
terrible.
thing is when we looked at all that stuff, they were either done on a voice vote in the House,
Yeah.
or we looked at the committee vote, which was usually, most of them were unanimous.
Right.
So we have, in fact, when I did end up talking with the chair of ED&A in the House, I sent him the copies of every Senate bill that we had and a copy of the hearing report. We don't have hearing reports from the House. The only thing we can do is read the blurb.
Right.
And I think that's one thing that needs to change, that every House hearing should be recorded and a hearing report generated.
Right.
Because if we have this ever happen again, we can exchange those
look
reports
at
and
'em,
we
yeah.
can
Yeah.
look at
Right.
You know,
who
this-
testified, what the testimony was,
Yeah.
what were the issues, what were the problems, if everybody
could-
agreed.
'cause
But we
we're-
don't have that information.
Because we're looking at one bill with like 40 or something bills
Yeah, that's-
on
yeah, I
there.
know.
And we
don't
had
like
reps in our caucus were picking out different ones that said this is bad, that one's bad. This one Republicans didn't vote for. Only a few went with the Democrats.
feel like you
Well,
shouldn't be talking.
sorry, you know, that we can only go by the
I know.
information that we had.
But we needed, not you, but the president and leadership should have had a better,
There should have had a better
Yeah,
communication.
right.
But we sat for months, and all of this was done in a very compressed period
Right,
of
yeah.
time in June, at the end of May and into June.
Well, you know, we have House clerks, you know, clerks
Right.
of committees, but this past term, a lot of those hearing notes have been editorialized.
Well, and that is not supposed to happen.
But
Oh,
it
no,
has.
I know that.
Yeah.
That's not supposed to
now,
happen.
you know, when we're in session, when we're in the House, the bills are always in the back. I went up because I wanted to pull a few of these bills that they were talking about. There were no bills for us to pull
Why?
because they didn't bring them.
Oh,
You know what I mean? I mean,
okay.
we could have done it. I can't do it on my phone. It's just too
It's
small
very hard
print.
to read them on. Well,
Yeah,
we
I
do
know,
read
it
them.
is, it's
Yeah.
difficult to read
Yeah.
on the phone. But I'm hoping that before we have the veto day, that people can actually go and take a look at these bills. Look, there are gonna be people that are just gonna vote against it for whatever purpose. But, you know, you've got a bill in there for Concord Steam. We need that bill passed so they can finish that project, so there can be
Well,
heat.
okay, September's, let me just be devil's advocate again.
Right.
September is veto day.
Right, September, I'm not
We
sure what
have,
the day
we're
is.
The
voting.
15th.
November
Is it the
3rd is
15th,
election.
yeah.
And then new bills can be put in January. So you're only looking at from September to January. I mean, is the whole state going to collapse if something doesn't get
I
passed?
think that there's some bills that are more critical than others that really do need to pass. And you're right, bills are gonna get filed in November and December, but they're gonna go through the process, so we're talking about almost a year from now, because the end of the process is in June.
Well,
And many of them don't
hearings
get,
start in January.
correct.
So they'll go to the House end of January,
Oh,
February.
September 16th.
Yeah,
And-
you're right. But unless you say, okay, this was a bill that, and the House and the Senate have to agree, this was a bill that was in the omnibus bill that gets vetoed, it has to be fast-tracked. That's the only way that you're gonna get them
Right.
done quickly.
Yeah.
I mean, in that was a bill from the
Well,
House.
would it change things if the governor had line item veto power?
I
don't
don't know
we
if you
have
wanna
that?
do that, and I think
No?
that would be something that would have to be done by the Constitution.
Yeah.
Oh.
But there was a bill that dealt with the state building code review board.
Right.
They cannot adopt any amendments to
Well,
that
see why
board
they shouldn't
without
put
getting
poison pill in
legislative.
there when they have
Right.
good, when they have good bills, they
And
shouldn't
so
be
now
attaching
they've
bad
been
things to
waiting.
it.
They have been waiting for months, and they can't do it now. It's like, there are things that need to get done, and we need to get them done.
But need to get them done at the expense of having these other
Right.
bad things passed.
But
So
if that's the case,
problem
and
with
here I'm gonna
omnibus
play,
bills.
you know, the devil's advocate. If reps were so upset at these bills, why didn't they call in during the public hearings?
Were they allowed to during
Of
the
course they
public-
were. These were
No.
public
There were-
hearings.
there was some- I've heard some
That's not
rumors.
what it was. Because the Senate had their bills. We knew you had hearings. They never came over to the House for
I'm
us to
talking about
dissect.
the omnibus bills.
Right,
Val.
that's what I'm on. There's about 30, 20-some Senate bills in
Yeah.
there. But we never had the hearing.
Right, but
in the
we
House.
had the hearing.
You did, yeah.
Yeah, in fact, we had 2 hearings.
Right. But see,
So, no, I mean, very few reps actually called in.
Right.
And the ones that did were in favor of
did
the
you do
bills.
them virtual?
They were all virtual. They
Right.
were all publicly noticed
Yeah.
in the calendar, everything. So we did not hear from you folks. You guys didn't call in.
Right.
I hate to say you guys, but you folks didn't call in. You didn't weigh in on
Yeah,
any
see,
of this.
we don't get the Senate, we don't get your calendars and, you know what I mean? Like,
They're
and-
online.
and
They're
you-
all on-
yeah,
everything
Oh,
is
I know
all
they're
online.
online, yeah.
So, I mean, there could have been, I think, better communication
Yeah.
between the House leadership and Senate leadership. But, you know, these days were set up, and in fact, on one of the bills, one of the senators brought in an amendment at the last minute, and I refused to exec it. I said, no, the public needs to have time to look at this.
Right.
The senators need to have time to look at it, and we will exec it I think we execed it 2 days later. So everyone had an opportunity to look at it.
Yeah.
I can't say that everybody else did that,
Right.
but I felt that that was the right
No,
thing to
yeah.
do.
Yeah, because our policy committee looked at all the bills and broke them down. Then we had the ranking members in different committees speak up. That one's a good, this one's no good, this one's got a bad pill in it. So it caused a lot of problems for us.
Yeah, but
You know?
we went by the information we had, which was looking at the blurbs and then looking at the votes.
Well, I guess we could say the same.
Hopefully Chuck will
Yeah,
talk to
you guys
Dick.
looked at our hearing reports.
Yeah.
They were accessible, they're all online. Everything is.
Hopefully Chuck will talk to Dick Kids before we go into session.
Well, I hope that's
And,
the case.
yeah.
And if I see Dick tonight, I'm going to yell at him, so
Yeah.
that's okay. But yeah, there should have been much, much better communication from the Senate leadership and the House leadership. And I'm not talking about between Republicans, I'm talking about the majority party.
Yeah, because we're
right
the
now.
minority. We're the minority this year.
Everything
so-
is out of our control. We don't, I mean, I think in the Senate, we had a little bit more input, but the Democrats determined what was important and what
Right.
wasn't important.
Yeah.
We didn't.
That's
Right.
what we
And
didn't like.
there were bills that I had that I felt were very important, and
Yeah.
I tried to get them in, but we were told, no amendments. The agreement
Right.
is no amendments.
And in the House, we
So-
had a promise that we would work together with them.
I know.
And
Right,
they,
and
did,
then
they didn't do that.
They didn't do that.
Well, I
No,
know.
that's
You know.
why we agreed to
Right.
suspend the rules
We wouldn't
for
suspend
this
the
the whole
rules.
COVID
that's
thing,
why-
but then they didn't keep up their end of the bargain.
And this is why I think it's good if the legislature looks and does an after-action report as well. What worked and what didn't work,
Right,
and
yeah.
what we need to do to improve for the future if this should ever happen
Yeah,
again.
well, Sharon, we got about 2 minutes left now. You have a Democrat running against you, right?
Yeah.
And no primary, which is good.
No
Yeah,
primary.
and I see that as a seat filler because there ain't one senator that comes close to you.
Al, I don't ever take any
Yeah.
election for granted
No, I know
whatsoever.
that.
That's smart.
But
You know, I don't ever,
Yeah.
I get out there. It's going to be different going out there right now, but I've been very, very busy
how
doing a
do
lot of
people
things.
get in touch with you if they want to get in touch with you?
They can email me. They can email me at my Senate email address. One issue I do want to bring up is once we got into this COVID, I just say COVID isolation, a lot of communication broke down at the State House. We did not get emails. Our aides were told to work from home, and some of them didn't even have internet. Some of them didn't have laptops. The state had to go out and buy them laptops. So there were weeks where we just didn't see emails.
Well, we didn't
and I
either.
want to apologize to my
Yeah.
constituents if you sent me an email during that time and you didn't get a response from me.
Right.
It wasn't because I wasn't paying attention, it's that we weren't getting them.
Right.
And then all of a sudden we got a huge dump of emails, and I tried to go through them all. But
Sorry, also, I always have to check the junk box. A lot of
Yeah.
Yeah,
my
a
emails
lot
get
of
we got
sent
about
to the junk.
51 seconds.
But I've just been busy, getting prepared for the election.
Right.
Doing fundraising, doing all those things that we need to do. Constituents call me all the time. We still have people that have unemployment issues and getting paid. So I've done a lot of work with constituents on that.
George has done a great job for Londonderry.
Oh,
I must have
George,
sent
yeah.
him about 30
Yeah.
emails to him.
Well,
on
him
different,
and Commissioner Lavers, the
Yeah.
two of them together. I think I've got Commissioner Lavers on speed dial.
Yeah.
And I've been able to help folks get the help that they need, and that's our
Yeah.
job.
Well,
That's
good
what
luck.
we do.
Good luck to you, Sharon.
Thank you very much.
I
Yeah.
think you'll do fine, and I look forward to
Well,
working with you.
Thank you, and good luck to the.
I need luck too.
Yeah.
Good luck to you.
Well done.
once again, this is Who's Looking Out for You. We'll see you next time.
And Al will have a voice next time.
Yeah.
Yep, Al will have his voice back.